Welcome to stage 3 of the 5-day pastel challenge. This stage is really about building those layers, getting depth of tone, adding some darker, some lighter, and building contrast, and really working our way up through that strong cloud bank at the bottom and towards the blue area in the sky. So layering and building and really consolidating our previous efforts. So I'll stop talking and start demonstrating, and you'll be able to see what I mean. The first thing I'm going to look at today then is working on this cloud over here and bringing it more into the pictures. We've done a bit of work through here. I want to make sure this one starts to be integrated, and is also quite a complicated, well, I say complicated, it's not too bad, but there's some interesting cloud shapes through here. Yeah, we'll go with interesting rather than complicated. Complicated always sounds a bit daunting, doesn't it? There's some interesting clouds through here, and it sort of merges in, but there's some sharp edges through here, this cloud here. So we need to, let's build up a little bit here. We can't tackle the exact precise edges yet until we work on this area here and clarify what's happening here and the colour we want this to be. I've done mine currently quite a pale lilac shade. It's blue lilac, but it's mainly lilac. This is more bluish here, but it's a matter of taste, these things, and do feel free to add it to your own colour specifications as you want to. You haven't got to stick faithfully to the picture. Now, let's start off again with the rule of 3. So I'm going to take these darker ones here and maybe a tad of that mustard again here, possibly. But it's quite a bluish tint to this cloud, so I'm tempted to go with the blue, which means the mustard is out, isn't it? Because mustard and blue will make green. So let's leave that to one side. We could add a bit of that. We could add a tint to that later. We'll see. Okay. So it's the blocky mark making again. Then it comes over towards this paler cloud here. So I'm going to move up actually to this one, I think, because there's some merged areas here. And if I put the one that's too, this purple here is quite a blue purple. If I put that towards the yellow, I'm going to get a slightly green, muddy shade. So I'm going to use this as more harmonious, not well, it'll mix well with the yellow. What I'm doing here is adding a bridging colour into here. This is a colour I know will merge well. So this is that slightly pinkish. It's got a slight blue tint to it, but it goes okay with lemon and it goes okay with purple. So we can put that in. I'll put a bit through here as well, because I think it's got a slight three-dimensional aspect. So I've done a gentle bend with my little finger and just delicately moved across that area, leaving it slightly mottled again, and then merging it over towards here. And I've pushed up a little bit into the edge there, but not really worried about the edge yet, because that's going to come back. We're going to push the light over the edge from the other direction. Please bear in mind that some of these overlaying techniques with the clouds can be done more than once. So if you need to do it 2 or 3 times and that's what you do, that's fine. So I've added some of that mid shade purple, which is the darker end, but it's not as dark as these really dark ones, obviously. Just into that area there, again with blocky mark making, just to merge that area through before we then clarify these sharp edges. Next, I'm going to add a bit of dark on. So some dabs of dark, similar technique, and some's fallen on there, just scattered around, but that'll do. We'll add the bit of powder. We'll go with some of these interesting mistakes and just add a bit of drama to the bottom of the cloud. Now this purple is slightly brownish, if that makes sense. So it might link quite well when we move into the landscape area, and it ties in nicely with the yellows as well. And a bit more of that blue. And just a little hint, I don't want to go too much on that. Dash more through here. Now, having worked with the dark, I'm going to go back in with some of the light now and cut in some of the shapes I've made. So I'm creating the cloud by looking at, I guess, the space behind it, the negative space, rather than the actual positive space of the cloud is the negative space underneath it. I'm going to take 3 shades. One's that pale blue area, one's the pale lilac, and one's the warmer tone. I'm going to take 4 shades. So I think actually I'll need that warmer tone, but I'll also need the one that's slightly pink. So this is how they'll transition. They'll work through, and this will bridge between the blue and the more warm peach colour. I'm going to come down from the top here and add more of the blue in. So I'm cutting into that pale cloud. We're using the flat of the pastel all the time still. Then it's coming into this area here where these yellow colours are. Now if I go straight in with this, it's going to end up with a green. So I'm going to switch to what I hope is the lilac. It's quite close to the blue really, these two here. So if I switch to the lilac won't give me green. Now as I move higher up here, I'm going to just add a bit of the darker blue and then go back to that lilac shade so that my blue doesn't create an unpleasant colour. Now where it's higher up, I'm going to use the slightly darker lilac, but it's still quite a pinkish lilac, just to buffer where needed, and it creates some interesting tints and shades as well. Be quite important to be very controlled when blending this. This is a very pale lilac I'm putting in here. It's almost white, it's almost grey. I'm just reintroducing some of that pale cloud through here. Now I'm going to go through with some white and add some white, bringing it down to the edge of the cloud here. Now you'll notice I'm moving differently with the pastel. I'm starting to twist it a bit and move it around and turning the angle of my arm so it isn't just going in blocks all the way across. I'm starting to change direction and manipulate and tilt the pastel. So twist, tilt, rock, roll as needed. And starting to cut into some of this cloud here. Now I'm doing a very gentle softening in. So having started to work into this area here, what I'm going to do next is work back up through here with a bit more light. So I'm going to use the white just to put some fluffier cloud details. Well, I say details, I'm still using the side of the pastel. I'm just doing some blocky mark making on top of my lighter colours just to pick up some nice sense of the light coming up into the clouds here. So really this white is mingling with the colours that are underneath. Twist and move your pastel, don't just go one direction, get stuck in a rhythm going across. I'm trying to change direction going up here. Put some different mark making on to depict which way the clouds are moving. I'm pressing firmly, as you can probably hear, and starting to slice as well. Not just block marks, but also slicing through here to capture some of that movement of those wispy clouds. Putting a bit of the brighter lemon in as well. So we're gradually getting more focus in on details, not rushing towards it yet, we're just building up an interesting texture to work with. My concern at the moment is this is very big and bold, and it works in the photograph, but whether it works as a big lump over here on its own, I'm not entirely sure. I might have to creep it a bit further towards here, possibly reduce the height here. So do play with the composition until you feel like it's working for you. So I'm going to put some light through this cloud here and make it slightly less dominant and slightly more three-dimensional. So gentle, controlled blending. Don't blend dark areas into light. Don't blend blue into yellow. I love this stage because what's happening here is it's evolving beyond the photograph, a piece in its own right, and it's starting to communicate in its own way. And there's some things that need to be changed, and it's letting it speak to you and letting it evolve, and that's really enjoyable part of being creative. But it is faithful to the mood and the atmosphere of that sky at that time of day when I was standing there, walking through the fields with the dogs. So as I said at the beginning, feel free to repeat and build as needed. So the next step within this stage is to go back and do this again if need be,